Hello, friends. The 1,237th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Russian troops continue their offensive actions in various parts of the front. In the Luhansk region, Russian troops captured Bilohorivka, the last populated area in the region that was under Ukrainian control. Now, according to the assessment of People's Deputy Bezagla, there are no populated areas left under Ukrainian control in the Luhansk region, and the Russians have about 80 square kilometers of territory left to occupy. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians advanced north of Kupiansk and captured the village of Krasne Pershe. In addition, an advance was noted in the direction of Borova, in the Novoekonomichne area. The village of Zirka was captured on the border of the Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk regions. There was also an advance west of the Myony-Tolstoy line. Further south, an advance was noted in the area of the village of Kamar. To the south of Kostiantynivka, Russian forces advanced toward Oleksandro-Kalynove, as well as in Romanivka and Popiv Yar. An advance was also recorded in the areas of Bilohorivka and Novotoretske. To the west, Russian forces advanced northeast of Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad, along the Novotoretske Novoekonomichne line. The Russians also took up new positions in the Bolykivka area and towards the village of Suvarovi. The village of Rozhyeny has been captured. Russian telegram channels claim that their troops have advanced even further and reached the Rodynske mine and the eastern outskirts of the village of Krasny Liman, whose residential development flows into the city of Rodynske, a key settlement north of Pokrovsk, closely adjacent to the highway leading to Dobrapilya. Ukrainian maps do not confirm these Russian advances. At the same time, a soldier of the Ukrainian armed forces with the call sign Muchnoy admits that the situation on the northern flank near Mirnohrad is escalating. According to him, the enemy is using drones and artillery against the settlements of Rodynske and Bilytske. The enemy is gradually approaching. There will be even more shelling. Do not put your lives in danger. Evacuate. Our fighter calls on the civilian population. As for the advance, the enemy is moving towards Suvarovi, gaining a foothold in Novotoretske, and continues the offensive in the direction of Mayak. The settlement of Malynivka is gradually coming under the control of Russian troops. Stabilization measures are being carried out there, writes Muchnoy. I will note that the Russian Defense Ministry has already announced the capture of Malynivka today. The obvious plan of the Russian command in this direction is to exit to the north of Pokrovsk, which places the units of the Ukrainian armed forces defending there in a large pocket where all the logistical routes of the Ukrainian army will be under fire. This will greatly complicate the defense of this area. The Russian Defense Ministry also announced the capture of Malynivka in the Zaporizhzhia region. Ukraine has not confirmed this. Malynivka is located in one of the directions of the counteroffensive of the Ukrainian armed forces in the summer of 2023. On the deep state map, the village is partly under the control of the Ukrainian army, partly under the enemy. Let's look at what Trump said in his statement today about Russia and why he gave Putin 50 days. The main thing is that he postponed the introduction of duties against Russia and its trade partners for 50 days. He stated that during this time, Kyiv and Moscow would have to conclude a deal. At the same time, Trump actually put the Graham Act on 500% duties on the back burner, stating that he would introduce 100% tariffs and without even having to pass a separate law. Thus, the doubts that arose around this bill from the moment it appeared in the information field were confirmed. Trump also announced the supply of weapons to Ukraine through NATO and with European money, something he had already announced earlier. We will produce weapons, but they will pay for them, not us, said the U.S. president, referring to European countries. He named only one type of weapon, the Patriot air defense system, which will arrive in Ukraine in the coming days. At the same time, he specified that formally the systems will be sold to Europe, to replace the installations that will already be delivered to Ukraine from the European Union. Trump said that a total of 17 Patriots are involved, but made it clear that not all of them will be used on the battlefield. That is, not all of them will go to Ukraine. Trump did not specify how many Kiev will ultimately receive. He also did not specify in what form the United States will provide 17 Patriots. If these are 17 batteries, then this is an exorbitant number. For comparison, NATO member Germany currently has only 6, and Israel, the closest ally of the United States, has 3, according to open sources. According to media reports, Ukraine operated 6 to 7 batteries. Therefore, it is more likely that we are talking about 2 or 3 batteries. The NATO standard is up to 6 launchers, but to increase the density of fire in combat conditions, up to 10 launchers can be deployed. That is, either 2 batteries with 8 to 9 launchers, or 3 with 5 to 6. This results in the number 17, which Trump used. Overall, Trump's tone was not belligerent. He said that he expected to achieve peace through negotiations, which, according to him, Russia does not agree to. Trump called trade a good tool for stopping wars. He also refused to call Putin a killer, although he criticized him for continuing the war in Ukraine and bombing cities. The bottom line at the moment is the transfer of Patriot Systems to Ukraine. Trump has not yet confirmed the supply of other types of weapons, which the American media wrote about, in particular long-range missiles. However, he does not rule out their shipment. After Trump's speech, CNN, citing sources, reported that the United States may also sell NATO members short-range missiles, howitzers, and medium-range air-to-air missiles, which will then be transferred to Ukraine. Let's try to figure out what this means. On the eve of today's statement, there was an active warm-up of the public. For example, Senator Graham spoke. He promised that Trump would confiscate Russia's frozen assets in the U.S., hand over a lot of weapons, and also give the green light to impose secondary sanctions of 500% against countries that buy Russian energy and other goods. A number of media outlets wrote that the Americans would supply Ukraine with long-range missiles. But in the end, if we compare it with what was announced, Trump's real statements do not look nearly as harsh towards Russia. So far so that the Russian stock market even soared. On the one hand, Trump gave the green light to supply weapons to Ukraine, but not for free, but for European money. And it is unclear in what quantity and in what nomenclature. On the other hand, he did not impose sanctions immediately. But he gave Putin about 50 more days to negotiate a deal. 50 days is until the end of August. During this time, a lot can change both on the battlefield in Ukraine and in the world. It is characteristic that the day before, the Axios publication wrote that Putin told Trump that within 60 days he would launch a major offensive to reach the borders of 4 regions. And it turns out that Trump, in fact, gave Putin time to try to fulfill his threat. And only then, based on what he succeeded in and what he failed to do, will negotiations be conducted. People's Deputy Besugla also comments on the situation in a similar vein. Trump gave Putin another 50 days to seize Ukraine. Carte blanche, so to speak. To the Dnipro or Kramatorsk everything is so appetizing, she wrote. However, from all this, of course, one should not conclude that we are talking about some kind of deal between Trump and Putin. Trump and the Europeans can really supply Ukraine with a very significant amount of weapons, including long-range missiles, although they are not yet publicly discussed, in order to try to prevent Putin from achieving what he wants on the battlefield and weaken his negotiating positions. The Ukrainian armed forces may launch massive missile strikes on Russian cities, which will cause Russia to respond, including perhaps Orshnik, and the situation may move to a new level of escalation, getting out of control of Trump and other participants in the process. Therefore, the sooner agreements are reached, the better for everyone.
Friends, I want to develop and strive for higher quality content, but my 2009 computer does not allow me to do this. If you have the opportunity to help me buy a new computer and make my dream come true, I will be very grateful to you. You will find the link in the description under the video and in the pinned comment. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.